The golden throne room stretched for nearly a kilometer in every direction. Emperor Zixathera sat on his crystal seat, his forearms resting on the armrests while his scaled tail curved around the base. His red eyes glowed as he stared at the holographic display floating before him. The image showed a small planet covered in green fields and blue oceans. Humans called it Kepler 442b, but the Emperor called it a problem. "These humans refuse to pay taxes," said General Voss, a tall creature with gray skin and no hair. He stood beside the throne, his hands clasped behind his back. "They say they are independent farmers who owe nothing to the Empire." The Emperor's claws tapped against the crystal armrest. The sound echoed through the massive throne room. For 300 years he had ruled over 2,000 star systems. Every species in the galaxy knew his power. Every world sent him tribute. Every race bowed when they heard his name. Except these humans. "How many humans live on this farming world?" the Emperor asked. "About 50,000, Your Majesty. Most of them grow food and raise animals. They have no military, no weapons, no space fleet. They are weak." The Emperor stood up from his throne. He was 3 meters tall, much bigger than any human. His ceremonial robes flowed around him like liquid gold. He walked to the large window that looked out over his capital city. Millions of alien beings lived there, all serving the Empire, all afraid of him. "General, do you know why I rule the galaxy?" "Because you are the strongest, Your Majesty." "No." The Emperor turned back to face his general. "I rule because everyone believes I am the strongest. Fear is power, General. Without fear, there is no empire." The Emperor walked back to his throne but did not sit down. He pointed at the image of the human world. "These farmers think they can ignore me. If I let them refuse to pay taxes, other worlds will think they can do the same. Soon the Empire will fall apart. What are your orders, Your Majesty?" The Emperor smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "We will teach the galaxy what happens when someone says no to me. But we will not destroy the planet. That would be too simple. We need to send a message that will make every species in the galaxy remember why they should fear us." General Voss waited for the Emperor to continue. He had served under Zixathera for 50 years. He knew that look in the Emperor's eyes. Someone was going to suffer. "Take the Third Fleet to this human world, but do not attack their cities or farms. Do not hurt their adults. I want you to do something very specific." The Emperor walked closer to the hologram. He could see small dots moving across the planet's surface. Each dot was a human settlement. He zoomed in on the largest one. The image showed buildings, roads, and open spaces where humans gathered. "They are having some kind of celebration," the Emperor observed. "Look at all those humans in the central square." General Voss looked at the display. "It appears to be a harvest festival, Your Majesty. The humans gather once a year to celebrate their crops." "Perfect. I want you to separate the adults from the children during this festival. Use energy fields to hold the adults in place. Make sure they cannot move or look away. Then kill every human child at the celebration. Do it slowly. Make sure the parents watch everything." The general's gray skin turned a lighter shade. Even he had not expected such an order. "Your Majesty, are you certain? Killing children will make the humans very angry." "That is the point, General. I want every human in the galaxy to know what happens when they refuse to pay taxes. I want them to understand that their children will die if they do not obey me. After you kill the children, broadcast the recording to every human world. Tell them they have 10 days to surrender completely or more children will die." General Voss bowed his head. "It will be done, Your Majesty." 3 days later, the Third Fleet arrived at Kepler 442b. The human colonists saw the massive ships appear in their sky. They tried to send messages asking what the Empire wanted. They offered to negotiate. They promised to discuss tax payments. The Imperial ships did not respond. The Harvest Festival was in full swing when the Imperial shuttles landed. Thousands of humans had gathered in the main square of New Haven, the planet's largest settlement. Children ran between the food stalls while their parents traded goods and celebrated another successful harvest. Music played from speakers while dancers performed on wooden stages. The Imperial soldiers wore black armor and carried energy weapons. They moved through the crowd like a dark wave. The humans tried to run, but more soldiers blocked every exit. Energy fields crackled to life, creating invisible walls that the humans could not pass through. "Attention, humans," came a voice from the lead shuttle. General Voss stepped out, his gray uniform perfect despite the long journey. "By order of Emperor Zixathera, You are all under arrest for refusing to pay imperial taxes. A human man pushed forward through the crowd. He wore simple farming clothes and had dirt under his fingernails. I'm Mayor Johnson. We can discuss this. We can work something out. There's no need for weapons. General Voss looked down at the small human. There is nothing to discuss. The Emperor has already decided your punishment. The Imperial soldiers began separating the crowd. Adults were pushed into one area, surrounded by energy fields that sparked when anyone tried to touch them. The children were herded into the center of the square. There were thousands of them, from babies in their mother's arms to teenagers who were almost adults. "What are you doing with our children?" shouted a human woman. She pressed against the energy field, not caring that it burned her hands. General Voss activated his personal communicator. The device projected his voice across the entire square and broadcast it to the Imperial ships above. He knew this recording would be sent to every human world in the galaxy. "Citizens of the Empire," he began, "what you are about to witness is the price of disobedience. Emperor Zixathara is merciful, but he is not weak. When a species refuses to pay their taxes, there must be consequences." The general gestured to his soldiers. They raised their weapons toward the group of children. The human adults screamed and fought against the energy fields, but they could not break free. They could not look away. The energy fields forced them to watch everything. "The number of children here is 5,731, the general announced. "Each one represents a lesson. Each death represents the price of defying the Empire." The children huddled together in the center of the square. Some were crying. Others called out for their parents. The older ones tried to protect the younger ones, but there was nowhere to run. General Voss looked at the human adults trapped behind the energy fields. Their faces showed terror, anger, and desperation. This was exactly what the Emperor wanted. This was how the Empire maintained control. "Let this be a message to every human world," the general said. "You have 10 days to surrender completely to the Empire. Submit to our rule, pay your taxes, and serve the Emperor without question. If you refuse, more children will die." He raised his hand to signal the attack. The Imperial soldiers aimed their weapons. The human parents screamed. The massacre began. When it was over, the square was silent except for the sound of human parents sobbing. 5,731 children lay dead in the center of New Haven. The recording was transmitted to every human colony, every human ship, and every human outpost in the galaxy. Emperor Zixathara watched the recording from his throne room. He smiled as he saw the fear in the human faces. Soon he thought every human world would surrender. The Empire would be stronger than ever. He had no idea how wrong he was. Emperor Zixathara expected the human surrender to come within hours. His communication officers waited at their stations, ready to receive messages of submission from human colonies across the galaxy. The recording of the massacre had been sent to every human world. Surely they would understand the message now, but the first day passed with no response. "Perhaps they need more time to discuss it," suggested General Voss. Humans are slow thinkers. The Emperor was not worried yet. Sometimes it took weak species a few days to accept reality. He had seen it before with other rebellious worlds. First came shock, then anger, then finally the smart choice to surrender. On the second day, something strange happened. The Imperial monitoring stations that tracked all communications in the galaxy noticed that human radio signals had stopped. Not just military communications, but everything. No trade messages between human merchant ships. No personal calls between human families. No data transmissions from human research stations. "Technical problem," said the chief communications officer. "A insect-like creature with 6 arms. Their equipment probably broke." But on the third day, the silence continued. Imperial spies who lived on human worlds reported that the humans were acting normally. They went to work, took care of their families, and continued their daily lives. But they were not using any long-range communications at all. "This is impossible," the Emperor said. He stood in his communication center, watching the galaxy-wide display. Thousands of colored dots represented different species and their radio signals. The human dots had all gone dark. A species cannot just stop talking to each other. Admiral Krex, the Empire's intelligence chief, brought disturbing news on the 4th day. "Your Majesty, our agents report that humans are abandoning their outer colonies. They are packing up everything and leaving, but we do not know where they are going." The Emperor's red eyes glowed brighter. "Are they running away? Are they afraid?" "We do not think so, Your Majesty. They are moving in an organized way, like they have a plan. That same day, Imperial patrol ships reported another strange sight. Human cargo vessels that had been scattered across the galaxy were now moving toward the center of human space. But these ships looked different. They had new armor plating and what appeared to be weapons mounted on their hulls. "Those are merchant ships," said General Voss, studying the reports. "Why do they have military equipment?" The Emperor began to feel something he had not experienced in 300 years: uncertainty. The humans were not behaving the way conquered species were supposed to behave. They should be begging for mercy by now. They should be offering to pay double taxes in exchange for peace. On the 5th day, the Imperial Navy lost contact with 3 patrol ships near human territory. The ships had been investigating the movement of human vessels when their signals simply stopped. Search teams found debris, but it was unlike anything they had seen before. The metal was twisted in impossible ways, as if the ships had been hit by weapons that should not exist. What kind of weapons could do this? The Emperor asked his military advisors. "Unknown, Your Majesty," replied Admiral Krex. "The damage patterns are not in our databases. We have never seen anything like this." The Emperor called for his chief scientist, an ancient creature with a large brain and 4 eyes. "Tell me about human technology." "Humans are a young species, Your Majesty. They have only been in space for a few hundred years. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. They use simple fusion engines, basic computers, and crude weapons. They are at least 500 years behind the Empire. But on the 6th day, intercepted human communications revealed something that made everyone in the throne room go silent. The humans had not actually stopped communicating with each other. They had switched to a communication system that the Empire had never seen before. "Quantum entanglement communicators," read the chief scientist from his datapad. His 4 eyes were wide with shock. "This is impossible. The theory exists, but no one has ever built working devices. The technology requires precision that is beyond most species." The Emperor felt his stomach turn cold. "How long would it take to build such a network? To connect all human worlds?" "Hundreds of years, Your Majesty. The planning alone would take decades. The construction would require perfect coordination across thousands of star systems." The 7th day brought more disturbing news. Imperial intelligence had discovered hidden facilities on human worlds that had been there for decades. Underground factories that produced advanced weapons. Secret shipyards that built military vessels disguised as civilian craft. Training centers that had been turning human farmers and merchants into soldiers for generations. "They have been preparing for war," Admiral Krex reported. "Not just for years, but for centuries." Every human colony had hidden defenses. Every human ship had concealed weapons. Every human settlement had underground bunkers stocked with supplies. The Emperor stared at the intelligence reports. Photos showed massive underground complexes beneath human farms. Weapons that looked far more advanced than anything in the Imperial arsenal. Ships that appeared to be civilian transports but were actually heavily armed warships. "How did we not know about this?" the Emperor demanded. "They hid it very well, Your Majesty. Our spy satellites saw only what they wanted us to see. Their real infrastructure was underground or disguised as something else." On the 8th day, human ships began appearing in Imperial space, but they were not attacking yet. They simply appeared, scanned Imperial installations, and then vanished again. The ships moved faster than anything in the Imperial Navy. They seemed to ignore the laws of physics that limited other vessels. "They are mapping our defenses," General Voss reported. "They know the location of every Imperial base, every supply depot, every communication relay." The Emperor realized that his demonstration had not terrified the humans into submission. Instead, it had triggered something that the humans had been planning for a very long time. They had been waiting for the Empire to cross a line. The murder of their children was that line. On the 9th day, the Emperor received a message from his border governors. Human civilians were evacuating from all Imperial territories. Not just from human colonies, but from mixed species worlds where humans lived alongside other aliens. They were leaving their homes, their businesses, and their possessions. They were going somewhere that the Empire could not follow. "Where are they going?" the Emperor asked. "We do not know, Your Majesty. They seem to have hidden colonies that we never discovered. Places where they have been building and planning without our knowledge." The 10th day arrived. The Emperor had expected human surrender, but instead he got something else. Every human in Imperial space was gone. Every human ship had vanished. Every human colony in the outer systems had been abandoned, but the humans had left behind something. On every world they evacuated, they placed a single message beacon. The message was the same everywhere, broadcast in every language spoken in the Empire. "We remember," the message said, 5,731 children. We remember their names. We remember their faces. We remember who killed them, and we are coming. The Emperor stood in his empty throne room. For the first time in 300 years, he was afraid. He had thought the humans were weak farmers and merchants. He had thought they would surrender when faced with superior power. Instead, he had awakened something that had been sleeping in the darkness between stars, something that had been watching, planning, and preparing for this moment. The human war was about to begin, and the Emperor was starting to understand that his empire might not survive it. The breakthrough came when Imperial forces captured a damaged human cargo ship near the edge of known space. The ship had been abandoned, but its data cores were still intact. Emperor Zixthera ordered his best technicians to extract every piece of information from the alien computer systems. What they found changed everything. Chief Scientist Mordak brought the initial findings to the throne room. His 4 eyes showed confusion and fear as he approached the Emperor. "Your Majesty, we have begun to understand what the humans have been doing. But I must warn you, the news is disturbing." The Emperor leaned forward on his crystal throne. "Show me." A massive holographic display activated in the center of the throne room. It showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy, with thousands of colored dots representing different star systems. The human territories appeared as small blue dots scattered along the outer rim. "This is what we thought human space looked like," Mordak said. 57 systems with small farming and mining colonies. Maybe 200 billion humans total, a minor species on the edge of civilization. The scientist touched a control panel and the display changed. Suddenly, hundreds of new blue dots appeared throughout the galaxy. They were hidden behind nebulae, in dark space between stars, and in systems that Imperial surveys had marked as uninhabitable. "This is what human space actually looks like," Mordak continued. "Over 300 systems, nearly 1 trillion humans. They have been here for centuries, building and growing in places where we never looked." The Emperor stood up from his throne. "How is this possible? Our exploration ships have mapped every system in the galaxy. They mapped every system with planets suitable for known forms of life, Your Majesty. The humans learned to live in places that other species cannot survive. Asteroid fields, gas giant moons, the edges of black holes. They built habitats in space itself using materials and techniques that we do not understand." Admiral Krex stepped forward. "Your Majesty, there is more. The humans did not just hide their colonies. They hid their true technological capabilities." The holographic display changed again. Now it showed detailed images of human technology. Ships that looked like simple cargo vessels opened up to reveal massive weapons systems, farming equipment that could be quickly converted into military vehicles, even human children's toys that contained advanced computer systems. "Every human device has multiple purposes," Admiral Krex explained. "Their farming tools are also mining equipment and weapon components. Their civilian ships are disguised warships. Their communication satellites are also spy networks and weapon platforms." The Emperor felt his 4 hands grip the armrests of his throne. "You are telling me that every human farmer is actually a soldier?" "Yes, Your Majesty. And more than that, the humans have been studying us for hundreds of years. They know everything about Imperial technology, military tactics, and political structure. They have detailed maps of every Imperial base, complete records of our supply chains, and psychological profiles of our key leaders." Chief Scientist Mordak activated another display. This one showed Imperial technology, but it looked different. Weapons systems had been modified in ways that made them more powerful. Ship engines had been redesigned to be faster and more efficient. Even basic tools had been improved beyond what Imperial engineers thought possible. "The humans did not just copy our technology, Your Majesty. They made it better. Much better. Their scientists appear to have a gift for taking existing designs and improving them in ways that we never considered." The Emperor walked down from his throne to stand closer to the holographic displays. He could see detailed analysis of Imperial weaknesses, battle plans that targeted specific vulnerabilities in Imperial defenses, and technological solutions to problems that Imperial scientists had been struggling with for decades. "How long have they been planning this?" the Emperor asked. "Based on the data we recovered, Your Majesty, at least 200 years, maybe longer." They have been preparing for a war with the Empire since shortly after they first made contact with Imperial civilization. Admiral Krex brought up another set of files. Your Majesty, we also discovered something called Protocol Samson. It appears to be their plan for total war against the Empire. The display showed a complex flowchart with thousands of interconnected steps. Each step was labeled with things like infrastructure targeting, supply line disruption, communication network destruction, and colonial liberation. According to these files, Admiral Krex continued, the humans were waiting for the Empire to commit what they called an unforgivable act. The murder of their children appears to have been that trigger. The Emperor felt his blood turn cold. You mean they wanted us to attack them? Not exactly, Your Majesty, but they were prepared for the possibility. They studied Imperial history and found that the Empire often makes examples of rebellious species by harming civilians. They prepared for that scenario. Chief Scientist Mordak activated a new display that showed historical records. Your Majesty, the humans have detailed records of every species that the Empire has conquered or destroyed over the past 1,000 years. They know exactly how Imperial expansion works. The display showed planet after planet, species after species, all following the same pattern. First contact, trade agreements, increased Imperial presence, taxation demands, resistance, demonstration of power, surrender, or extinction. The humans realized that they would eventually face the same choice that every other species has faced. Mordak explained, submit to the Empire or be destroyed. So they chose a third option, which is, destroy the Empire first. The Emperor stared at the holographic displays showing the true scope of human preparation. Hidden fleets, secret alliances with other alien species, advanced weapons, detailed intelligence, and centuries of planning. The humans had not been conquered because they had been preparing to be the conquerors. There is something else, Your Majesty, Admiral Krex said quietly. The humans have been in contact with other species that the Empire has subjugated. They have been sharing technology and coordinating resistance movements for decades. A new display showed communication records between humans and dozens of other alien species. The Zephyrians, who had been forced to mine crystals for the Empire, the aquatic Keth, whose ocean worlds had been turned into Imperial naval bases, the silicon-based Moor, who had been enslaved to build Imperial computers. How many species are involved in this resistance? The Emperor asked. At least 40, Your Majesty. Possibly more. The humans have been teaching them how to build better weapons, hide their activities, and coordinate attacks. The Emperor realized that his demonstration on Kepler 442b had not just triggered a human war, it had activated a galaxy-wide rebellion that had been growing in secret for centuries. Every species that had ever been conquered by the Empire was now armed with human technology and human tactical knowledge. Your Majesty, Chief Scientist Mordak said, there is one more thing. The humans left a message in their data cores. It appears to be intended for you personally. The holographic display cleared, and a simple text message appeared in the air above the throne room. Emperor Zixthera, the message read, you wanted to teach the galaxy about fear. You thought that murdering our children would make us submit to your will. You were wrong. You have taught us something instead. You have taught us that some things are worth any sacrifice to destroy. You have taught us that there is no peace while your empire exists. You have taught us that monsters like you can only be stopped one way. Thank you for the lesson. We will put it to good use. The message was signed with 5,731 names. Every child who had died at the Harvest Festival. The Emperor stood in silence, surrounded by the evidence of his empire's doom. He had thought he was demonstrating strength, but instead he had revealed weakness. He had thought he was teaching fear, but instead he had taught hatred. He had thought he was preventing a rebellion, but instead he had started a war that he could not win. The humans were coming, and they were bringing the entire galaxy with them. The attacks began at exactly the same moment across 847 Imperial systems. Emperor Zixthera was reviewing defensive plans in his war room when the first reports arrived. Admiral Krex burst through the doors, his face pale with shock. Your Majesty, we are under attack. Multiple systems. Simultaneous strikes. The Emperor rushed to the central command display. Red warning lights flashed across the galactic map like a deadly rash. System after system reported enemy contact, infrastructure destruction, and communication failures. How many ships? The Emperor demanded. We do not know, Your Majesty. The attacks are happening so fast that our commanders cannot get accurate counts, but it appears to be thousands of vessels. The display zoomed in on the Kepler sector, where Imperial forces maintained a major supply depot. The base commander's report came through in panicked bursts. Unknown ships appearing from hyperspace, design unlike anything in our databases. They are not engaging our fleet directly. They are targeting the supply containers and fuel storage. Our weapons cannot lock onto them. They move too fast. Another report came from the Vega system. Imperial hyperspace beacon Delta 7 is under attack. The enemy is using some kind of new weapon. The beacon is being pulled apart at the molecular level. We cannot stop them. System after system reported the same pattern. Human ships would appear without warning, destroy critical infrastructure, and vanish before Imperial forces could respond. They were not trying to conquer territory or capture prisoners. They were systematically dismantling the Empire's ability to function. They are cutting our communication lines, reported General Voss. Without the hyperspace beacons, our fleets cannot coordinate with each other. Each system is fighting alone. The Emperor watched his empire fragmenting in real time. Red zones appeared on the map, where Imperial forces had lost contact with the Central Command. Supply lines that had operated for centuries were severed in hours. Military bases that had never been threatened were burning. Where did they get so many ships? The Emperor asked. Admiral Krex pulled up tactical analysis on his personal display. Your Majesty, these do not appear to be traditional warships. The hulls show characteristics of cargo vessels, mining equipment, and even passenger transports. But they have been modified with weapons and armor that surpass our best military technology. You mean they converted their civilian fleet into a navy? It appears that their civilian fleet always was a navy, Your Majesty. Every human ship was designed to serve double duty. A cargo vessel could become a destroyer. A passenger liner could become a carrier. A mining ship could become a siege engine. The Emperor realized that the humans had built their entire civilization as a weapon. Every tool, every vehicle, every structure could be turned toward war when needed. They had hidden an entire military behind the appearance of peaceful farmers and merchants. But the humans were not fighting alone. Reports came in of Zephyrian crystal ships fighting alongside human vessels. Keth water-bearers had converted their peaceful transport craft into torpedo boats. Even the silicon-based Moor were using their construction equipment to tear apart Imperial installations. The rebellion is spreading, Your Majesty, Admiral Krex reported. Species that have been loyal to the Empire for hundreds of years are joining the humans. They have weapons and tactics that we have never seen before. The Emperor watched a live feed from the Altair system, where an Imperial cruiser was trying to defend a mining operation. The cruiser was one of the most advanced ships in the Imperial Navy, but it was being torn apart by a combination of human, Zephyrian, and Keth vessels working together. How are they coordinating so perfectly? The Emperor asked. Different species, different technologies, different tactical doctrines. They should not be able to work together this well. Chief Scientist Mordak had been analyzing the attack patterns. Your Majesty, it appears that the humans have been training with these species for decades. They developed combined tactics, shared technology, and created unified command structures. This is not a sudden alliance. This is a military force that has been practicing together for generations. The reports kept coming. Imperial forces in the Tau Ceti system had been surrounded by an enemy fleet that seemed to appear from nowhere. The defense platforms around Rigel had been destroyed by weapons that ignored their shields. The major shipyard at Procyon was being systematically dismantled by enemy engineers who knew exactly where to strike. They know our weaknesses, General Voss observed. Every attack targets the most vulnerable part of our defenses. They know which systems to hit to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. The Emperor realized that the humans had been studying Imperial military doctrine for centuries. They knew how Imperial fleets moved, how Imperial bases were constructed, and how Imperial supply chains operated. They had planned these attacks to exploit every weakness in the Imperial system. Your Majesty, Admiral Krex said, we are receiving reports that our subject species are joining the rebellion. The Andromedans have seized their home system. The Centaurians have declared independence. Even species that seemed completely loyal are turning against us. The Emperor watched his empire collapse like a house of cards. Species that had been conquered centuries ago suddenly had advanced weapons and the will to use them. Colonies that had been peaceful for generations were driving out Imperial governors. Entire sectors were cutting ties with the central government. How did the humans coordinate all of this? The Emperor demanded. Your Majesty, it appears that human agents have been working throughout the Empire for decades, disguised as traders, diplomats, and even imperial citizens. They were building networks, sharing technology, and preparing for this moment. The tactical display showed the true scope of the disaster. The Empire was not just losing battles. It was losing the ability to fight. Communication networks were destroyed. Supply lines were severed. Entire fleets were cut off from support and fuel. Our forces in the Outer Rim have gone dark, reported Admiral Krex. We have no contact with 17 sectors. For all we know, they have already fallen to the rebels. The Emperor stared at the map of his crumbling empire. Red zones spread like an infection, consuming system after system. The humans had not just started a war. They had started a revolution that was destroying everything the Empire had built over 1,000 years. How long can we hold the core systems? The Emperor asked. Unknown, Your Majesty. The enemy is not trying to invade the core worlds. They are destroying our ability to maintain control over the outer systems. Without the infrastructure to support our fleets, we cannot project power beyond our home territory. The Emperor realized that the humans were not trying to conquer the Empire. They were trying to cause it to collapse under its own weight. By destroying supply lines and communication networks, they were forcing Imperial forces to abandon their positions and retreat toward the core worlds. They are hurting us, the Emperor said with growing understanding. They are driving our forces back to the center of the galaxy. Soon we will control only a few dozen systems instead of thousands. Yes, Your Majesty. And when that happens, the subject species will be free to govern themselves. The Empire will cease to exist. The Emperor watched his life's work burning on the tactical display. In just 3 days, the humans had accomplished what no enemy had ever managed. They had not defeated the Imperial military in direct combat. Instead, they had made the Empire impossible to maintain. Reports continued to arrive throughout the day. Imperial governors fleeing their posts. Entire star systems declaring independence. Subject species forming their own governments. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years was dying, and there seemed to be nothing that could stop it. The Emperor realized that his demonstration of power had become his greatest mistake. By murdering human children, he had not created fear. He had created something far more dangerous. He had created justice. 6 months after the first human attack, Emperor Zixthara stood alone in his throne room. The massive crystal chamber that had once echoed with the voices of ambassadors from 1,000 worlds was now silent. The holographic displays that had shown his vast empire now showed only a handful of systems still under Imperial control. The golden capital city outside his window was nearly empty. Most of the alien populations had fled to their home worlds or joined the rebellion. The few remaining Imperial loyalists huddled in fortified compounds waiting for the inevitable end. Admiral Krex entered the throne room. His gray uniform was wrinkled and stained. He had not slept in days. Your Majesty, long-range sensors detect a large fleet approaching the capital system. They will arrive within hours. The Emperor did not turn around. He continued staring out the window at his dying city. How many ships? Several thousand, Your Majesty. Human vessels supported by ships from at least 20 different species. It appears to be their entire combined fleet. Our defenses? Minimal, Your Majesty. Most of our fleet was destroyed or captured during the retreat. We have perhaps 50 ships remaining, and most of those are damaged. The Emperor finally turned to face his admiral. His red eyes had lost their glow. His golden robes hung loose on his shrinking frame. The stress of watching his empire collapse had aged him decades in just 6 months. Will they negotiate? The Emperor asked. Admiral Krex shook his head. They have ignored all attempts at communication, Your Majesty. They seem interested only in total victory. And surrender? They have not responded to our surrender offers either, Your Majesty. I believe they intend to see this through to the end. The Emperor walked slowly back to his crystal throne. The seat felt cold and empty now. All the power it had once represented was gone. He was no longer the ruler of a galactic empire. He was just a tired old creature waiting for justice to arrive. Leave me, the Emperor said quietly. Go to your family. Spend your last free hours with those you love. Admiral Krex bowed one final time and left the throne room. The Emperor was alone with his thoughts and his regrets. He had replayed the decision 1,000 times in his mind. The order to kill the human children. At the time, it had seemed like a simple demonstration of power. a way to maintain control over his vast empire. He had not considered that it might trigger his own destruction, but the humans had been different from every other species he had conquered. They had not been impressed by his power. They had not been intimidated by his threats. Instead, they had been preparing for war longer than he had been alive. Hours passed. Then the first explosions echoed across the capital city as human ships engaged the remaining Imperial defenses. The Emperor watched through his window as his last warships were systematically destroyed. The humans had learned to fight like no other species in the galaxy. They combined overwhelming firepower with perfect tactics and absolute determination. The orbital defenses fell within an hour. The planetary shields collapsed 30 minutes later. Enemy shuttles began landing throughout the capital city, but they were not bombing or destroying buildings. They were simply taking control, one district at a time. The throne room doors exploded inward. Human soldiers in black armor rushed through the opening, their weapons raised and ready. Behind them came soldiers from other species. Zephyrians with crystal armor, Keth in water-filled suits, silicon-based Moor that looked like walking rocks. But the Emperor's attention focused on the human who walked calmly through the destruction. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and tired eyes. Her black uniform bore no decorations or rank insignia. She carried no weapons, but every soldier in the room deferred to her authority. Admiral Sarah Chen, the Emperor said, recognizing her from intelligence reports. Commander of the Human Liberation Fleet. The woman stopped a few meters from the throne. She looked up at the Emperor with eyes that held no fear, no anger, and no mercy. Emperor Zixthera, murderer of 5,731 human children. The Emperor stood up from his throne. Even in defeat, he was still 3 meters tall and physically imposing. You have won, Admiral. Your rebellion has succeeded. What happens now? Admiral Chen did not answer immediately. Instead, she activated a device on her wrist. The Emperor recognized it as a quantum communicator, the technology that had allowed the humans to coordinate their galaxy-wide rebellion. This communication is being broadcast to every human ship, every liberated world, and every free species in the galaxy, she said. Billions of beings are listening to this conversation. They want to know what happens to monsters when they are finally brought to justice. The Emperor felt his legs weaken. He sat back down on his crystal throne, but it no longer felt like a seat of power. It felt like a defendant's chair in a cosmic courtroom. Admiral, I know that I have caused great suffering, but consider the practical realities. My empire is gone. My fleet is destroyed. My authority is ended. Killing me will not bring back your children. Perhaps we could discuss terms for my exile or imprisonment or some form of service to help rebuild what was destroyed. Admiral Chen reached into her uniform pocket and pulled out a small photograph. She held it up so the Emperor could see. It showed a young girl with brown hair and a bright smile, wearing a white dress covered in flowers. This was my daughter Emma. She was 7 years old. She loved to dance and sing. She wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. She was helping her younger cousin reach the food tables when your soldiers murdered her. The Emperor stared at the photograph. For the first time, he saw one of his victims as a real person instead of just a number in a report. I have photographs of all 5,731 children, Admiral Chen continued. Their names, their ages, their dreams, their families. Every human ship carries these photographs. Every human soldier knows their stories. We did not fight this war for conquest or revenge. We fought it so that these children's deaths would mean something. The Admiral put the photograph back in her pocket and looked directly at the Emperor. You asked what happens now. You want to negotiate? To find some arrangement that allows you to continue existing. You want mercy or exile or imprisonment instead of death. The Emperor nodded. Yes. Surely there must be some way to resolve this that does not require more killing. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. Around the throne room, soldiers from dozens of different species watched and waited. Through the quantum communicator, billions of beings throughout the galaxy listened for her response. You made a choice 6 months ago, she said finally. You decided that human children should die to demonstrate your power. You believed that we would submit rather than see more innocents suffer. You thought that fear would make us weak. The Emperor waited for her to continue, hoping that she would offer some path forward that did not end in his death. But you were wrong about us, Admiral Chen said. You were wrong about what makes humans strong. You were wrong about what we will accept and what we will fight against. And you were wrong about what happens to those who murder our children. She looked around the throne room at the assembled soldiers, then back at the Emperor. Every species in this room has suffered under your rule. Every world we liberated had its own stories of imperial cruelty. Every person in this galaxy who lived under your empire has been waiting for this moment. The Emperor tried one more time.
Admiral, please.
Consider the precedent this sets. If you execute me without trial, without negotiation, you become no better than I was. Show the galaxy that you are more civilized than the Empire. Admiral Chen smiled for the first time since entering the throne room. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had finally found the exact right words for a situation that had been building for centuries. You want mercy? She asked. Yes. You want negotiation? Yes. You want us to be better than you were? Yes, please. Admiral Chen keyed her communicator so that her voice would carry to every corner of what had once been the Galactic Empire. When she spoke, her single word echoed through space to reach every human ship, every liberated world, and every free being in the galaxy. No. The word hung in the air like a final judgment. It was not shouted in anger or whispered in hatred. It was spoken clearly and calmly by someone who had made a decision and would not change her mind. The Emperor stared at her in shock. In 300 years of rule, no one had ever simply said no to him. No negotiation. No compromise. No alternative offers. Just a simple rejection of everything he represented. No mercy for child murderers, Admiral Chen continued. No negotiation with tyrants. No civilization that tolerates monsters. This is the lesson you taught us, Emperor. Some things are worth any price to destroy. Some enemies cannot be allowed to exist. Some evils must be ended completely. The Emperor realized that his demonstration of power had taught the humans exactly the wrong lesson. Instead of teaching them to fear him, he had taught them that he was something that needed to be destroyed at any cost. Admiral Chen gestured to her soldiers. The age of empire is over. The galaxy belongs to free peoples now, and there is no place in it for you. As the weapons were raised, Emperor Zix Thera understood his final mistake. He had believed that power came from making others afraid. But the humans had shown him something different.